Tonight we are honoring 5 outstanding former athletes and 1 honorary inductee and an outstanding and very successful coach. In order to become a member of the Statesboro Athletic Hall of Fame, one must meet the following criteria. They must be a graduate of Statesboro High or William James High School or Marvin Pittman. Must be an alumnus from one of these institutes for at least 15 years. So this coming year's senior class will be 2037 before they'll be eligible for induction into the Hall of Fame. So there's a 15 year. They also must have a nomination form turned in and submitted to the selection committee. The selection committee just goes over the nominations that are presented. We don't go out and seek and search for people, but the nomination has to be submitted. And you can get those usually during the week or a couple of months prior to the induction ceremony from the Statesboro High School, or at any time from Kathy Tucker. And her email address is kathybtucker@gmail.com. Or you can call her either one, or let any of the committee know. So it is important and imperative that nominations are turned in. The honorary inductees are individuals who have gone above and beyond in influencing and impacting the lives of student athletes in their athletics as well as their educational development. We have a number of former inductees here tonight. I've seen some of them. And at this time, I'd like to ask if you have been inducted in the Statesboro Hall of Fame, please stand up. It's always great when they come back, and you can tell how much it means to them if they enjoy coming back to this particular ceremony. I'd like to extend a special thanks to several people, to Keith Wright, who's the principal of Statesboro High School. Is Keith in here? And also to Pat Hill. Is Pat in here? Who's passing the back. He's the athletic director. And their staff. We could not do this without their support and their help, and we appreciate them so much. So if you run across either one of them, thank them for the part and the role that they play in this. So again, welcome to the ceremony. Congratulations to all the inductees who will be honored tonight, and we will get started.
That's another Statesboro Blue Devil first down. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alan Tyson, and I'm going to be your MC for tonight. And, I'm thankful for a few things. One thing I'm thankful for is that Bruce had to talk before me because I didn't have to figure out how to turn the microphone on. I was wondering if he was ever going to figure that out, but right. Also, Kathy, I appreciate you. I'm sorry, invocation. I jumped the gun. Come right on up here. Badge leadership by Bruce Young. Good evening.
First of all, giving honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, first and foremost, and to these distinguished Statesboro High School Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, to those who came out to support and help celebrate this prestigious event, and certainly last but not least, these who are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. As I pondered on what to talk about today, Ms. Tucker asked me to give an invocation and a couple of words of encouragement. I thought about Coach Herm Edwards. I don't know why he came to mind, so I I Googled to find out if he was actually in Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame. And what I found out is he was not. But something else came to me. I noticed that John Lynch, Hall of Fame inductee from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he spoke about Herm Edwards in his Hall of Fame speech. This was a quote that he used that kind of spoke to me. He said, "One special human being who saw something in me before I saw something in myself is my co-presenter," he said, Herm Edwards. Lynch said, "Herm had a vision for the way I should play the safety position. He encouraged me to play with passion, the joy, physicality, and instinct that define my game." He said, "Herm, you were also the first to tell me I could have a bust someday in Canton, but only if I believed it." And then he said, "We're here, Herm." I believe the reason why the Lord took me to this place is because to know that wherever we make it in life, be it in our career path that you have chosen or the path that was chosen for you, I'm pretty sure that the majority of us have tonight can think of someone who believed in us before we believed in ourselves. In the book of Exodus, Moses tried to come up with so many excuses not to be great, but God would not accept them. How many of us had a leader or a teacher or a coach or a supervisor who wouldn't accept our excuses, wouldn't allow us to be average? In 1 Samuel 17, God chose another man, David, to defend his people against a giant foe. David was a big man, wasn't a big man physically. As a matter of fact, he was the smallest and the youngest of 8 boys. And he looked nothing like one who should be fighting a giant. But the Bible tells us that God doesn't look at the outer appearance of a man, but he looks at the heart. God chose these men because he believed in them. Just as Herm believed in John Lynch. We all needed someone to believe in us. I like the end of the quote from earlier. John said, "We're here, Herm." He understood that he didn't make it there by himself. He understood that it was somebody in his life before him who saw something in him. He said, "We're here because of those teachers and coaches who pushed us beyond where we thought we could go. We're here for the family members, friends, and teammates who encouraged us to follow our dreams." And just like God saw something in Moses, in spite of his infirmities, he saw something in David, in spite of his size. God sees something in each and every one of us in here that is great. So on this night, I ask that you would please remember that as we celebrate these inductees, let us not forget that they all had someone there who believed in them even before they believed in themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was, I'm glad that you corrected me so we could hear that. We all needed to hear that, and I appreciate that. I was saying earlier that I did feel a little unusual. Kathy's got me a chair here behind the podium. For you Baptists in the room who've been in Statesboro for a while, I felt like J. Robert Smith sitting up here waiting to go up to the podium. But Bruce, I'm kind of honored to go behind Bruce, really. when I look out into this room, I see people that have been my heroes. I see people in this room that I've known for years and years, and I look on this list of inductees into the Hall of Fame over the years, and I see that same thing, teammates. It's just amazing. From a personal standpoint, having grown up in Statesboro, just as a for instance, I grew up on Henry Street, so I didn't get out of town a whole lot, but I had a friend, Tom Hook, whose father played at Georgia Tech, and he was kind enough to, in the late 60s, to take me to Athens to see Georgia and Georgia Tech play. It was my first college football game. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my age difference, too, with Bruce. But Bruce, a 210-pound young man, was playing starting left guard for the University of Georgia at that time. And for those of you who are a little young and don't remember anything but the way that Sanford Stadium looks now, at that time it was open on both ends and had a field house down on the railroad track end and had a little small fence around the field. And it's, because we were Mr. Bo Hook, who had played at Tech, and we were able to get down near the field and near the gate where the teams came out after the game. And when they came out, Bruce handed me his chin strap, and he became my hero. He also has, you hear us banter back and forth, we've been doing this for the last 40 years. And I see people like Pratt Hill, who I work with and work for. I see Stacy Webb, J. Deal, Wallace Wiggins, all these people, and I know I'm missing out on people, but I'm looking at people that I'm close to. And it's just amazing to see what wonderful people have been inducted into this Hall of Fame. And I want to tell you that I'm honored to be here tonight to move this thing along. Now, I will tell you this, I was intending to figure out a joke that I could tell y'all, but I got busy at work today and I didn't get an opportunity to look anything up on Google because I couldn't think of a Hall of Fame joke. But as I was coming over here tonight, I said, you know what, maybe Surrey knows this. And so I'm riding in my truck and I hit my phone and I said, Surrey, tell me a joke. And the first joke she told me was, a Roman walks into a cafe and holds up 2 fingers and leaves with 5 coffees. Figure that one out. A Roman leaves with 5 coffees. Okay, that's my last joke. Kathy did say we need to move this thing along. So, ladies and gentlemen, in 1985, Coach Steve Brooks and Coach Clark Collins introduced the idea of a Statesboro Athletic Hall of Fame, which would honor and recognize outstanding athletes who had graduated from Statesboro High School, Marvin Pittman High School, and William James High School. In addition, individuals who directly influenced student athletes would also be honored. In 1988, this dream became a reality when 9 individuals were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And since that time, 86 individuals have received that honor. I will tell you, in looking at this list, that first class included a couple of guys that I played football with, one that I played baseball with as well, and a coach that I played for at Statesboro High, and that was Henry Mays, who I think may arguably be the greatest athlete to ever step in the doors of Statesboro High. And Hank Smith, who was a wonderful friend and became a doctor and very successful. And then, as many of you know, if you've been in Statesboro for a long time, Coach Ernest Till. And I was honored. I didn't get to play football for Coach Till, but I did have an opportunity to play baseball for him for 4 years, and he was an outstanding man. And tonight, we recognize 6 individuals who are in the 2021 class in the Statesboro High School Hall of Fame. That would be Joey Hamilton, class of 1988, Eddie Hodges, class of 1977, Courtney Olive, class of 2000, Josh Thompson, class of 2003, and Alan Woodrum, class of 1997, and Coach Buzz Busby as our honorary inductee. Induction of athletes into the Hall of Fame has become quite a tradition here at Statesboro High. And tonight we want to congratulate these young men and women and older men for their accomplishments and what they mean and have meant to Statesboro High School athletics. Could we give them a round of applause? Our first inductee tonight will be Joey Hamilton, and he'll be introduced by Larry Bryan. I do have one personal note about Joey Hamilton. I followed his career in high school, and then he moved on to Georgia Southern. And at that time, I was umpiring some college baseball. And I remember almost distinctly the very first game that I umpired behind the plate when Joey was pitching. And you know, it's become commonplace even in the major leagues for guys to throw 95 and 100 miles an hour and all that stuff. But back then, it wasn't very common for somebody to throw 90 or whatever. So I remember the first batter came to the plate, and I got down behind the catcher, and the first pitch that he threw was a fastball that I never saw. But it sounded outside, so I called it a ball. And after that, I realized how well I could hear at that young age, because I was calling balls and strikes based on where I heard that ball hit that mid, and I never got a whole lot of argument, so I did a pretty good job. But Larry, come up and introduce Joey.
Joey. I was told I have 3 or so minutes to speak, but you and I go back over 3 decades. I need 3 hours. But I will honor the program's request and keep it brief. And I'll begin by saying congratulations. Well deserved. I first saw Joey pitch during his junior year in high school. I was standing in the left field outside the fence. And I quickly observed from that distance that he had the talent and he had the potential. So my focus went directly to his actions and behaviors when adversity hit, which happens in all sports. Things like errors made behind him. I was watching Joey. Base hits he gave up on good or bad pitches. I was watching Joey. Questionable calls that didn't go the Blue Devils' way. I was watching Joey. And the interaction when he got to the dugout with Coach Tucker. Now my question was, is he coachable? So Joey came to our Georgia Southern baseball camp in the summer. Gave me a lot of opportunity to spend time and observe and evaluate. Evaluate his attitude and evaluate his behavior. He listened, he worked hard, and he had a sense of humor that most good athletes have in a very positive way. So we recruited him. And at the end of his senior year, Joey was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles. Well, we wondered, well, what's he going to do? When it became apparent that he was going to bypass signing at that point, I had a meeting with Joey. I don't even know if he remembers it, but I do. We sat down because when I say behavior, for those of you that know Joey back in the day, he could, well, let me just put it, be a badass. So we had a meeting and I said, Joey, if you plan and are committed that you'll sign with Georgia Southern. If any of those things aren't on your list of commitments and plans, then do us and you a favor and go somewhere else. And I think you know what his decision was. Joey started for us as a freshman. His sophomore year was our 1990 season. Joey led the nation in wins. Joey got us through regional tournaments, and he started the first game we played in Omaha, Nebraska in the College World Series against the #1 team in the nation, Stanford University. Joey pitched the whole game, and we lost 5-4 in the 10th inning, bottom of the 10th. A side note on that, Rob Fitzpatrick was a catcher of ours that during that game, with another All-American on second base, nobody out, hit a ball that definitely went out of the park. But it was miscalled. And if that had not been miscalled, I believe our trip to Omaha would have been entirely different. But that's sports. Joey then, after his junior year, was the #1 draft pick by the San Diego Padres, the 8th pick overall in the country. And he signed. Well, we gave him handshakes, congratulations, and probably a hug, and he was on his way. After his first minor league season, he showed back up in Statesboro driving a red convertible Corvette. We caught up, we chatted a little while, and he said, "You want to drive it?" I said, "Well, of course I want to drive it." So we rode around for 20 or 30 minutes, and during that ride he said, "Well, punch it." I said, "Joey, I'm going 47 miles an hour. That's half the speed of your fastball. We're fine." Anyways, I look back over all these years, and our first interaction, I always viewed our relationship as a coach-player. But ever since he left Georgia Southern, I viewed our relationship through the lens of friends. And I think my time's up, so I'll conclude by saying congratulations, well deserved, to you and to all the other inductees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I always hate following Coach Bryant speaking. He usually does a pretty good job. Other than my father, my grandfather, probably had the single most positive influence on me becoming the athlete that I was able to. For that, I'm forever grateful. I do not remember the hard-working, going to class commitment that you speak of. When I got to Georgia Southern, as much as I can say about Coach Bryant now, I did not like him then. He pretty much handled all the conditioning and all the punishment down, and Jack Stallings let him do that. For me, to be an athlete, you have to have the desire to compete. To be a good athlete, you have to have arrogance. And to be great, it's borderline cockiness. And I had enough for 2 or 3 of them. And Coach Bryant, Kenny Tucker, teammate Dan Van Tassel can probably all attest to that. But I think in one aspect, kind of a different aspect, sideways diluted, it's what made me as good as I was. That, and I could throw really, really hard. But looking back, I see a lot of faces I haven't seen in a long time. See some that I see a lot more than others. Some I live with, my beautiful wife, Lauren. Down here, 2 of my boys, Dawson and Dominic. Stepmom Janet, who had the dubious job of handling contract negotiations for me after the draft, which was quite an experience. Once I left Statesboro in 1995, it didn't really get back a whole lot. but it never left my heart. Whenever I would be somewhere and we'd talk about where we were from, I would always tell people Statesboro, and then I had to explain to them where it was, because not many people knew. I want to thank Darren for the nomination, thank the committee for the approval. This is a huge honor. I appreciate it. Right next to my Georgia Southern Hall of Fame will forever be in my heart. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you, Joey. Congratulations. Our next inductee is Eddie Hodges, and Eddie will be introduced by Robert Poole. Now, I don't really personally know Eddie, but I do have a little bit of a personal note for him. I do happen to know Coach Poole, who will be introducing him. In 1970, my sophomore year at Statesboro High, Coach Poole moved to Statesboro and became the offensive coordinator for our football team. At that time, we had 3 coaches, a head coach, a defensive coordinator, and an offensive coordinator. And that was basically it. We didn't have position coaches, but I became friends with Coach Poole over the time that I was in school at Statesboro High, and we continued to be friends. Hadn't seen each other in a long time, but I was awfully glad to see him tonight. But Coach Poole, come on up.
Alan, I was only the receiver and defensive end coach. I wasn't the offensive coordinator. But I well remember Alan. Alan, and this is about Eddie, but one thing about Alan, he quarterback, he wasn't big, but I've never seen a football team play better for a quarterback than they did for Alan. We couldn't pass much, but we could run that off-tackle play with the best of them. Anytime we wanted 3 or 4 yards, we could get it. Everything I say tonight about Eddie Hodges applies equally to Philip Roselle. Just as everything I said concerning Philip 4 years ago and his Hall of Fame induction applies to Eddie. In the biggest meets, the Chatham Invitational, Statesboro Relays, Region Meet, Eddie and Philip would always place first in their respective events. Eddie in the 440, 880 mile relay, Philip in the mile, 2 mile, and mile relay. In 1977, Statesboro won the Statesboro Relays for the first time since 1970. In 77, Statesboro placed third in the state. That was Philip and Eddie's senior year. In AAA, our first year in AAA, the biggest, at that time, the largest classification in the state. There was no 4, 5, 6, and 7A. Eddie and Philip were without doubt a dynamic duo for SHS track in 76, 77. They were equally the heart and soul of the track team for those 2 years. They scored the first points since 70. In 76, their junior year, they combined for 12 points. In 77, they combined for 26 points at state. And together with Wayne Hall in the pole vault and Ronnie Cohn and Philip Trimble in the mile relay, they totaled 32 points for a third place finish in the state. And that was our first year in AAA. In high school, excuse me, a coach cannot instill talent into an athlete. That's obvious. But there are other things a coach cannot instill. A coach cannot instill work ethic, competitive spirit, courage, tenacity, or coachableness. An athlete has to bring these qualities in order for the athlete to be outstanding. And if the athlete is not coachable, then nothing a coach can do is going to amount to much. Because if the athlete is not receptive, then it doesn't happen. And Eddie and Philip were receptive. In high school, Eddie was taciturn, even laconic, even think of Steve McQueen, not much to say. He had very little to say. He let his legs and feet do his talking, and talk they did. However, he often flashed his smile to his friends, teammates, and to his competitors. but he was never intimidated, even when going up against a previous state champion. He would smile at his opponents, and they probably should have been worried when he did, because he had the confidence, not that he was necessarily going to win, but that he was up to whatever the challenge was. He would do his best. Only twice did he not win in state finals, once in the 880 and once in the 440. The winner in each race who beat him in the 880 had to set a new state record to beat Eddie. I think he beat Eddie by 1/10 of a second. And that was in Eddie's first year of running. He didn't come out till he was a junior, so he only had 2 years in high school. The first time I saw Eddie run in 880 was in practice against Philip in January of '76. He ran about a 2:05, I believe. And I thought, okay, I think he'd be pretty good, because back then 2:05 in some classifications would win the state in 880. Little did I know just how good Eddie was going to be. In '76, he went to state and qualified in 1:56.5, I believe it was, and he never broken 2 minutes. So I was absolutely astounded, as was our team and coaches. And I thought, okay, this may be the best Eddie can do. I didn't know what he could do. I thought, 1:56.5, I was looking for a 1:57 or 1:58 maybe. Up to that point, it was the most exciting race I'd ever witnessed. Previous to that final, I remember 2 coaches behind me talking about how they might as well go and give the trophy to Lester Mickens, who had won the state in the 880 the year before, so it was a shoe-in this year. There wouldn't be any competition, just go ahead and give him the trophy. Well, I did not know what to think, so I said nothing. I thought that maybe Eddie had used all the fuel in his tank in his qualifying run. Obviously, I was wrong, very wrong. Eddie gave more competition than Lester Mickens would have expected. Lester won by 1/10 of a second, breaking his own state record for the previous year. So that is what it took in order to win versus Eddie. Eddie giving his best and the competition giving their best. I would have been happier if Eddie had won the race, of course, but I could not have been prouder. For I knew that Eddie had given his all. So what more could a coach ask for? But the most exciting race I ever saw Eddie run, and I've ever seen run in track, and I've seen a lot of it, was the following year. It was the Chapman Invitational in April of '77. Eddie had already won his 440 and 880 races and was the anchor on the mile relay. And Butler and Warner Robbins were in first place. They shared the first lane around the entire track on the 4th lap. Eddie, when he got the baton, was at least 10 to 12 yards behind. Philip Roselle swears he was 30 or 40 yards behind. So somewhere between 10 and 40, he was well behind. Eddie set out and he ran the race, and then on the last 80 yards, he kept gaining and gaining, and then the last 5 to 7 yards or so, he passed and won. And I was asking Eddie about that the other day and said, Coach, all I wanted to do was just get up there and be with him. He wasn't trying to win, he just wanted to be with him. I said, well, Eddie, you were with him, and you beat him. Philip swears he probably ran a 46 leg. I have no idea what that leg was, but it was the most amazing, electrifying thing I'd ever seen. But all this was attributed, I think, to Eddie's attitude. As I said, he had talent, but talent alone will not get people where they want to get without discipline, without the work ethic, without being coachable, without competitive spirit, and courage at times. It takes all of that. Eddie had all of that. Eddie told me, well, excuse me, let's see, I'm skip around something, I'm trying to keep the time. The thing about Eddie was he never refused to do what I asked. And notice I didn't tell him what to do usually. I asked him. I mean, in training, I would say run this and that, and he would do that without complaint. But as a senior, I asked him to please run cross country because it would develop his mental toughness and his endurance. I couldn't have made him run cross country. I wouldn't have tried, but I did ask him. He did. He didn't like it. He didn't like it at all. He was a 440-80 guy. He was not a 3-miler. That's what cross country is in high school. I think Philip Mazzell probably had something to do with that decision. But he did. But the second example of Eddie doing what I asked him to do was, as a senior, I got the idea from Lester Mickens. He ran the 400 and the 800, and he won both in the state as a senior. I said, well, maybe Eddie could run both. I'm not saying he could win the state, but maybe he could run both. So I asked Eddie if he would try. He said, yeah, I'll try. He didn't shy away. And it was hard at first, but he adjusted. And I really think, and I asked Coach Gainey coming down, he's coach at the University of Georgia, and Coach Gainey agreed, I think, that the 440, 880, or 400, 800 as it's called now, is maybe the toughest combination of track to run. That's tough. Because the 440 is a dash. It used to be a run. Now it's a dash. It's been a dash for years, and now the 880 is just becoming about like that. Well, Eddie never lost a race locally. He never lost in the relays, never lost his Latitude region. He won both races. He qualified first in the 440 in the state. He got second in the state, again, losing by about a tenth of a 2. But he did handle it, no doubt about it. So to recap, in '76, Eddie won the region, placed second in the state in AA, by running and tying the state record his first year of track, and forcing the winner to break his own record. In '77, Eddie got second in the state in the 400. Now, he didn't qualify in the 880, amazingly, because of a very messed up, I thought, way to seed people as far as heats. The fastest 3 runners in the 880 in AAA in '77 were placed in the same qualifying heat. You just don't do that, folks, because only 2 can qualify. Eddie had the 3rd best time in qualifying. 4 people qualified that were slower than him. But Eddie didn't get to run because he was in that heat. And I complained about it. I went and told the officials that this is not right. Of course, nothing was done. But years later, they changed that procedure. And I won't go into that, but it was about time. I always thought Eddie was the best 880 runner of the state that year in '77. And I was vindicated about 2 weeks later. Eddie ran in what is called the Golden South Invitational of Orlando, Florida, against the best runners in his event in the Southeast, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, wherever. He ran a 151.6, which was about a second faster than his best time. It turned out it was the 10th best time in the entire nation in high school that year. That's how good it was. But you know the thing about Eddie, I remember Swainsboro runners especially, they would trash talk him so bad before every race. We're going to beat you, we're going to bust your heart, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I thought, yeah, well, if there's any heart busting to do, it'd probably be Eddie busting your heart. And I didn't say anything, you know. He didn't say a word. He just smiled at me. And of course, they never came close to beating him, never did. I once asked Coach Gainey, I said, Coach, did Eddie ever brag when he was at Georgia running for you? He said, never happened. And the only reason I asked that is because I thought that would be true. I just wanted to confirm it. Well, what a fitting finish for Eddie's final race in high school, that he did that and established himself as no doubt the best 800 man in the state of Georgia, at least on that day. He went on to junior college, went to Seminole Junior College, I think in Orlando, ran on a 2-mile relay. That's, you know, the mile relay, you got 4 runners running 440, well, the 2-mile, 4 runners running 880. They set a new junior college national record his freshman year. And I believe Eddie anchored that one, which means he was the fastest of the 4. But he still wasn't through. He went on to the University of Georgia for his junior and senior years, and in 1981, his senior year, he won the SEC championship in the 880 in 148.6. So There's no doubt about what Eddie accomplished, and there's no doubt about the kind of person that Eddie is that he was then. God gave him the talent, which Eddie was grateful for and humble about. He chose to develop his talent through working hard, and together with the other important qualities that Eddie possessed, which I had previously enumerated, brought Eddie all of this well-deserved recognition and achievement. Well, right it was. By the way, Eddie still holds a school record after 44 years, and he held the 440 record for about 30-something years here, the school record, and the mile relay for another 30-something years. The thing is, without Eddie and Philip, in 1977, Statesboro would not have won the relays, and that was a big thing to me because we didn't do all the work to put it on, and we hadn't won it since I'd been here. So that was huge for me. In my opinion, Eddie Hodges is a true champion as an athlete and as a person. It is my privilege and pleasure to present to you Mr. Eddie Hodges for induction into the Statesboro High School Hall of Fame.
I thank you for inducting me to the Hall of Fame. And I'm not much of a speaker, but I had some good coaches, Coach Poole and Coach Lewis Gainer at University of Georgia. And thanks the Lord for letting me be able to run track in 1976. And just thank you for being able to let me be a team player and do my best. And thank you for everything you've done for me. That's it. Thank you.
Wow, that is a list of accomplishments, and I'm sure Robert Poole is right about what he coached, and I wasn't, because how does he know all that stuff and remember it? But that is awesome, Eddie. Wonderful. Our next inductee is Courtney Olive, and she's going to be introduced by Chad Prosser. Now, I've been knowing Courtney since she was a little girl, and watched her accomplishments at Statesboro High School, watched her play soccer and basketball and softball, and she was known to be tenacious. And I also had the pleasure of playing football with Courtney's dad at Statesboro High School, and he was kind of tenacious too. I remember my freshman year, his sophomore year, we played a B-team game at Groves, and in the first quarter, we had the football, and I was playing center, I think, and Bruce was playing one of the guards. And when the play was over, whistles were blowing, flags were going everywhere, and I looked around, and Bruce had the guy that he was blocking. He had blocked him through the players on the sidelines and had him up against the fence at Groves, and he was still blocking him. Now, you may think that Courtney gets that tenaciousness from Bruce, but that wasn't tenaciousness by Bruce. He's blind. He couldn't see. He didn't know where he was. He just kept blocking the guy and blocking him and blocking him until he finally ran out of room to block him anymore. But it was quite funny. But I did get the opportunity to watch Courtney, and she definitely was tenacious. Chad, come on up and introduce Courtney.
Good evening. I get the pleasure of introducing Courtney, but I do want to take a second. I have a little bit of a tie to several of these people on the stage. I didn't get to see Mr. Hodges, but I did remember standing in the JV gym lobby, staring at that record board, amazed at how long his records had stood, even despite all the athletes we had come through the high school. I remember following Joey when I was little. I remember staring and yelling at the TV at that game when they called it a ground rule double. I remember that World Series game. I remember where I was. Josh, I remember my first year coaching at Statesboro High. Josh was a senior, and even then he was the strongest human I'd ever seen in my life. He was built just like he is now. Alan was a teammate of mine. Alan yelled at me more than any other teammate, but he also wouldn't let anybody else yell at me. So I'll always remember that about Alan. And then Coach Busby, my first year coaching, he was also coaching football, and we had a great relationship because I understood that we were playing soccer on the football field, that we weren't playing on the football and soccer field. We were playing soccer on the football field. So we had a good working relationship there. Courtney and I grew up together. Our parents were best friends. So Courtney was stuck playing most of her days with me and my younger brother Drew and her brother Greg. And with it being 3 boys and 1 girl, Courtney had to do what we said. And back then growing up, that meant playing outside. And usually we were making up some kind of athletic game, whether it was baseball or football. And it usually ended up getting too rough. In the early years, that usually meant we played until Courtney got hurt and we got yelled at by Miss Susan. But that quickly ended. It soon turned into where Courtney was the toughest one, and somebody else would get hurt. We would be too embarrassed to say that the girl was the one who hurt us, so we wouldn't tell anybody. We'd tough it out. And I think Coach Tucker would say that Greg spent most of his high school career in the training room, so it shifted to him. Courtney became one of the toughest people I knew. And that carried on to her time at Statesboro High. She was a starter on the softball team from the day she showed up. She was named Rookie of the Year at a coach's award. She had the team's highest batting average twice, was named the MVP twice. Then she moved into basketball season where her freshman year she was on the undefeated JV team. And then later, her senior year was named the best defensive player. And that team advanced to the Sweet 16 of the state tournament. On the soccer field, she was a 4-year starter, and she was tenacious just like Alan mentioned. She led the team to a region championship her senior year, and during her time on the field, she received the Coach's Award and the Most Valuable Offensive Player Award. She was highly respected by her peers and well-rounded. She was voted by her peers as the most athletic senior in the class of 2000. She was a member of many clubs, including the Beta Club, National Honor Society, and the Y Club. She was an active member of First Baptist Church and served on many mission projects with them locally and overseas. She was honored her senior year by the Exchange Club and by the Rotary Club as Student of the Month. She was a finalist her senior year for the Wendy's Heisman Trophy, the Donna DeVorna Spirit of Sport Award, and the Gatorade Will to Win Athlete. She was an honor grad from Statesboro High and afterwards attended Stanford, where she received a BSN in nursing. And she's currently a clinical service leader in the labor and delivery ward at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Courtney into the Hall of Fame. I'm proud of you and I'm excited for this opportunity. Congratulations, Courtney.
Short, sorry. Like Eddie, I'm not really good at this whole speaking thing, so bear with me. Chad, thank you for introducing me and just for our lifelong friendship that we've had. And I want to thank the committee for this incredible honor. When I was about 4, Mom signed me up for dance, and it came time for the recital, and the music started, and I went that way, and everyone else danced that way. And we all realized very quickly that I was not coordinated in that way. Sports have always just been such a huge part of my life, and my years playing sports at SHS are some of the best years of my life. I had the opportunity to play with some of the best teammates, and they became some of my best friends, and I had some amazing coaches. Went from one season of softball to basketball and then soccer, and just one sport finished, and then I started another one, and that was my high school career, just 4 years of constant sports. I love being on the field report, and I'll always be thankful for what I learned from my coaches. Paul Webb for basketball, and Coach Kathy Stinson for softball, and Karen Chester for soccer. I also want to thank my parents for their continued support, and literally thousands of miles that they traveled for all the years that I played sports. could not have done this without them being so committed to everything I did in high school. I'm so thankful for Statesboro High School for presenting me with this honor, and I cherish every minute of being at Blue Devil. This makes this so special. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, and congratulations. Our next inductee is Josh Thompson, and David Neesmith will introduce Josh. I do want to say that I had the honor of being the stadium announcer for Statesboro High School football for over 20 years, and during that time, I saw a lot of really good football players. Justin Houston, D'Angelo Tyson, Jeremy Mincy, Cam Newton, a bunch of them. And I have to say that Josh Thompson was one of the best defensive players that I ever saw while I was the stadium announcer at Statesboro High School. We used to joke in the booth that Josh was, from the neck down, one muscle. That was it, from his neck down. And he played with tenacity as well. But David, come up and introduce Josh.
I first met Josh when he was an 8th grader at William James. And he was not a little boy then either. He was 240 pounds, probably 5'9", 5'10". He was a big boy. But the thing, after you realize after 2 or 3 days, what makes this kid special is he had a motor. And that motor ran from the start of practice to the end of practice. Just a great kid, very coachable, and had a big work ethic. He played linebacker for us. He played fullback. After his 8th grade year, he came to Statesboro High as a 9th grader. He ended up playing nose guard. Later on, played some defensive end. Ended up playing some linebacker, tight end. But what I probably think he's most notable for, and people don't realize, was his kicking specialty. He was a kicker. His senior year, he put that square toe shoe on and got out and kicked football, and did a good job at it. He led the team, during the junior year, when Blue Devils went 15-0, won the state championship. He had over 100 tackles that year, had 10 sacks, and 20 tackles for loss. He made the Georgia All-State team and received a lot of awards that year. Twice named to the 4A All-State team. Josh also worked, as they had stated, was one of the strongest individuals probably ever stepped foot in this school. Had a 440 bench, had a 325 power clean, and squatted over 650 pounds, and that allowed him to win the strongest man in the state at the state weightlifting championships his sophomore, junior, and senior year. He was later given a full scholarship to Auburn, won a bunch of awards there, and even in 2008, Auburn won the national championship as well as the SEC championship. 2004, I'm sorry. He's received a lot of awards, accolades while at Auburn. Those included some of those include the Mike Cohen Award, which he led the team in tackles with 67. And he was also on the all-district football team in 2007, as well as the team captain in 2007. Had an exceptional career at Auburn. He was later signed by the St. Louis Rams in 2008, and later signed with the Montreal Alouettes of the Canadian Football League in 2009. He came back home later, ended up coaching over here at Statesboro High for a year, went to Southeast Bullock, and then came with me to Portal for 3 years as my defensive coordinator, where he did a great job out there. We didn't win a bunch of ball games, but we had a good time together, and that's a time I'll always cherish. I was told I needed to tell a story, and so I'm going to keep it when he was a young kid, because some of the stories I've got, I'm not so sure, Josh, that they wouldn't take this Hall of Fame and probably take it away from you. So we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it when you were young. Josh has always been a good guy. If you know him, he's very friendly, and he's always willing to do whatever you need him to do. Just a good guy. But there is a dark side to him. If you ever get him upset or make him mad, payback is coming, okay? This took place when he was 6 years old. Erica, at the time, she's 3 years older than Josh, and they had their cousins over one day, and Eric and Georgette, his mom and dad, had bought a trampoline. And that time, you know how siblings are. Usually the older ones are going to pick on the younger ones, and of course that's what the older ones were doing, and the cousins as well. And they wouldn't let Josh get on the trampoline and jump anymore. They'd kind of keep him off to the side. And the more they jumped, the madder he got. They wouldn't let him back up there. And of course they were egging him on to, you can't get up here, you can't get up here. Well, Josh disappeared for about 3 or 4 minutes. After that 3 or 4 minutes was up, he came back out with one of those great big old pair of cutting shears. He proceeded to start cutting that trampoline. And I guess he figured, well, if y'all aren't going to let me jump, by gosh, y'all aren't going to jump either. So he got his payback. But Josh, congratulations. We're all happy for you, and congratulations on being inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Coach Neesmith. Got my composition book. I wrote a few notes in. I think Coach Harvey said it best earlier. None of us would be here without our parents, our family, our friends, our coaches that have supported us through the years, and we really appreciate that. And there's no good way to tell you how much we really do appreciate it. But everybody means a lot to us. Everybody's influenced us in different ways, and most of those, like Coach Busby, just for instance, didn't really like Coach Busby a whole lot to start with, but you learn to know he's got his ways, he's got a method behind his madness, and you know, now he's one of my favorite coaches. Coach Yachts at Auburn, he was our strength and conditioning coach. He reminded me a lot of Coach Busby. I mean, I honestly hated that man the first year I was at Auburn. He made us get up at 4:30 every morning. I'm talking about every morning, even on Saturdays, and he'd take us through a 2-hour workout, and just relentless, completely relentless. But by my sophomore year, I realized this man's trying to make us better. There's a reason he's doing it. He's not there to make us worse. He's there to teach us lessons, make us tougher mentally and physically, and put us in a position where we could win. And when we got in hard times and things weren't going our way, we remembered back to getting up at 4:30, made it a lot easier, made things go a lot smoother. So just thank everybody. Thanks to everybody that had an impact on me, has an impact on kids still, because it goes a long way. It means a lot. I think football was kind of not an outlet for me. I had a great family life, was taken care of, didn't have any wants, but football gave me something I could focus on, something I could put all my energy into. I liked lifting weights for some reason. I have no idea why. I'd go out on the field. Mom and Dad would bring me up here. Most of the Daddy would bring me up here, and I'd pull a tire. I had no idea why, but it was just something I enjoyed. I'd come to, we had summer workouts. Instead of doing one workout, I'd come in the morning and do workout, and I'd come back in the afternoon and do another workout. It just was a way for me to focus myself on something. And then I wrote it here. I'm not even reading off of this. I'm not going to read off of it, I don't guess, but I went to Coach Norwood, David Norwood took me to Auburn camp my sophomore year, and I guess that's when I realized maybe I might be okay at football. I went up there, and the defensive line coach after day, it was a 2-day camp. After day 1, he came up to me and Coach Norwood, and he was like, "I've seen enough, you can go home." And I was like, well, that's probably not that good. maybe. But then Nord just smiled, and when we got in the car, he was like, pretty sure they're gonna offer you here pretty soon. And sure enough, they made an offer, and then, you know, a couple of weeks later, it might have been a couple of months, time flies, I had committed to them, visited some other places just to make sure, but that's kind of when I realized maybe I might can do something with this. But if Coach Nord wouldn't have took me to that camp, there again, just having some influences on kids, I might not have wound up at Auburn. There's no telling. I probably would have wound up somewhere, but he helped that out for sure. I do want to thank Miss Kathy, you know, putting all this together. It means a lot. It takes a lot of energy, I know, and not everybody cooperates. Probably people that don't get back to you in a timely fashion, but we try. And Renee, thank you. My wife Renee, she got all my stuff together out there. And then my mom and dad, you know, mom and daddy, if you don't know, they never missed a football game. I mean, ever. Never. College, nothing. So they were always my support. If I ever needed anything, I knew they were there. I didn't really ask them for much, but if I needed it, they were there. Then I always had friends, and my sister, you know, she was always there too. Never needed much from her, thank goodness, but I knew she was there if I did need something. You know, like I say, football just gave me a reason to make good grades, gave me a reason to come to school, gave me a reason to do the things that I needed to do and stay out of trouble. If not for football and not for coaches and Statesboro High, there's no telling where I could have wound up. You know, when I was thinking back about just Statesboro High in general, I'll never forget the feelings. It's like 2 days ago, I drove out to my land and I was in the woods, and I could just smell that fall smell coming. You know, it's just the same smells you get out here before a football game. You just never forget those feelings. And that's the thing I think I remember most. Mama cooking spaghetti in pregame for all the guys. You know, Coach Busby, I don't know if he was nervous or what. When I was coaching, I was always nervous, but you didn't want to say anything to him because he might cut your head off, literally, before the game. You didn't play around. And just things like that. Coach Nobles was my D-line coach here. He was probably one of the best coaches I've had. He was never serious. Coach Busby was over there about to cut our heads off. Coach Nobles was cracking jokes. You know, so you got both sides. And Coach Coach Pennington that's over at VA now, he looked like he died in a minute because his eyes were bloodshot. And he was, I don't know what he was on, but he was ready to rock and roll. You know, Renee brought me food before every game, candy and stuff. That's things I just remember. And I'll always be thankful, Coach Busby, to you because, you know, without you being here, we probably wouldn't have had the seasons that we did. You know, it's a big deal. You know, a lot of people didn't like you. A lot of people liked you, but daggone, you were a good football coach, and you put us where we needed to be. You know, there again, as I look to my kids, I've got twins here, and Kaylee's my 13-year-old daughter. I hope they can find a sport or an activity that gives them the feelings and the purpose that football gave me. If they can find that, they'll be successful in life. Thank you for selecting me to receive this honor. And last but not least, I'd just like to thank God for using me as He has. I've tried to, you know, be an influence on kids, tried to do the best I can, but without Him, you know, there's no telling where I might be. But thank y'all all for being here tonight. This means a ton, and we just really appreciate everything, and thank you for selecting me.
Thank you, Josh, and congratulations. Well deserved. Our next inductee is Alan Woodruff, and he'll be inducted by his dad, Dr. Arthur Woodruff. And I guess my personal note with Alan is I've just been knowing, again, him since he was a little kid. He kind of he was a soccer player before soccer was cool. And so he helped make it cool at Statesboro High School. And I think there's a lot of kids that came along after him that are indebted to him, and guys like Chad Prosser who turned soccer in the right direction here, gave it some type of identity for these kids to want to play. And so I know they appreciate that. Dr. Arthur, come on up.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to the Statesboro High Hall of Fame Committee for selecting Alan. I also want to thank the Statesboro school system for installing soccer as a sport here. Because when Alan was playing, it was very new. And I also want to thank Alan for choosing me to introduce him. Alan's been playing soccer ever since he was about 5 years old. And I've been there coaching him and in there with him. And when he played at 5 that year, he got out there and he was no soccer player. He didn't like it. Come back next year, and man, it was a 180-degree change. And I saw then that God had given him a special talent towards soccer. And, if God gives you a talent to do something, it behooves you to work hard and develop that talent. But in a sport, you're not going to develop a sport talent unless you're having fun. And so you as parents, Mary Alice and I, we wanted to come up with ways of giving him an opportunity to develop that talent, but still not pressing so much where he would lose the fun in it. Well, playing soccer is you've got to play with the ball a tremendous amount of time. That ball needs to become part of you. So that's work. And so we grew up, he grew up on a farm. I have a farm, and he grew up on a farm. On a farm, you always got things to do. It's always chores. And so I made a deal with him that he had things to do on the farm. I didn't have to be there. I expected it to be done. But if he ever got tired of it, he would have my okay to quit it. If he got the soccer ball out there in the front yard, and he kicked that ball around, and he touched it and played with it, and as long as he was playing with that ball, he didn't have to do the work. That boy played with that ball all the time. I still do not know whether or not he loved playing soccer that much, or he disliked the work. But I saw him out there one day. He had the ball, and he got to the place where he never looked at the ball. His feet always knew where it was. And he was running toward a tree. We had pecan trees out there. And so he was running toward a tree, and he got closer and closer and closer. And I started to hit him. I said, Alan, there's a tree there. Don't run into it. And he get right up to the tree and zip right around the tree, and on he goes. And I saw the results of that on the high school soccer field, in the soccer games. Alan played center halfback, center midfield. And he would get the ball a lot of times. A lot of times when he got the ball, there was only one defender between him and the goal. And I thought he would go toward that defender. And he'd go right straight for it. And that defender, he didn't know what to do. And Alan started made stop him. And then as we go back this way, that defender, I saw him several occasions, the defender get his feet so tied up until he just fell down. And so, and Allen just stepped right by him and went in for a goal. You know, he, in those times, he had developed the capability where that ball was part of his body. It was just, it's just like him walking down the street, having that ball kicking around. There's some, he played on several different teams. The high school team being probably his favorite. But I coached a traveling team, and it was one of the best traveling teams in the state of Georgia. And we went all over the place. And we had a tournament up in Minneapolis, Minnesota one time. And the team was up in Minnesota, and they started the tournament. Mary Alice and I had car trouble. We were in Kentucky. But in the first game of Minnesota, Allen he accomplished a dream that most soccer players would like to do. Now, if you're a soccer player and you play it up in front of the goal, your back is to the goal. So you're looking at your team, looking for the ball. And somebody kicks the ball, passes the ball to you at about head high or a little bit higher. You jump up in the air where you're horizontal to the ground, back to the ground, and you kick the ball over you into the goal. That's called a bicycle kick. And he accomplished that in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I didn't see it, darn it. And so, but that's one of the real odd accomplishments. He played on some guest teams. They were always asking him to play. He was in a tournament in Charleston, South Carolina. Well, he was on another person's team, and so I could be a spectator. And so I was behind the goal, and his team got a penalty kick. And the coach asked Allen for him to do the penalty kick. Well, you're not supposed to do this, but some of the opposing fans, they got right up behind the goal and started jumping up and down and trying to distract Allen from making the penalty kick. And I walked over to him. I said, "Listen, y'all, this is not going to do any good." I said, "That boy out there, he hadn't missed a PK in 3 years." So he didn't miss again. But you should have seen the faces on those fans. Allen, like I say, he played on many teams. He was on the ODT team for the state of Georgia. That was the Olympic development team. That was probably one of the top players in the top teams in Georgia. While he was at Statesboro High School here, he was a scoring machine, and he scored the hat trick many, many times. Now, the hat trick is when you score three goals in one game. And he probably would have scored a lot more goals. He set just about all of the offensive records at that time. I don't know. I'm sure they're probably broken by now, but he probably would have scored a lot more goals. But the coach, you know, you don't want to run up the score. And so they would pull him out, put somebody else in. And I did that in the traveling team too. So I think that was the right thing to do. Allen, based on his work here, he obtained a full scholarship for soccer at Georgia Southern University and played there on the varsity team for all 4 years. I can't remember, I think 1 year he might have got hurt. It might have been 5 years that he played. But, anyway, he served as captain of the team for 2 years. And, but if you talk with Alan about his soccer career, I think you would conclude that it was Statesboro High School soccer team that he enjoyed the most. And he set a lot of records. He had fun doing it, and he learned a lot of lessons of life. And those lessons of life have carried over with him into his everyday life, and he's still practicing. He has a wonderful family. He and his wife Wendy have 2 children, a boy and a girl. They're twins, and they are blessed with those twins having just extraordinary talent. Well, as far as sports, they're very, very bright also, but as far as sports, they have extraordinary talent. And you don't try to do anything with Alan and Wendy because they're busy giving those 2 children the opportunity to develop their talents. And they're gone all the time. And Alan, his life lesson, he has become a very confident person. He a person that knows how to meet people. He knows how good teamwork is. And I'm glad he does, because Alan and I are continuing our relationship because he is now a full partner in my business, and that requires teamwork, and he's doing an excellent job. So I am very appreciative of that. And so it's just been a very, very good experience for Alan. And again, I thank the Hall of Fame committee for choosing him. So, Alan?
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. It means the world to me to be inducted into the Statesboro High Hall of Fame. I'm a pretty emotional guy, as Chad said, and when you ask me to talk about the best memories I have while looking at my family and friends, it's not going to be the easiest thing to do. I appreciate your patience as I try to keep my emotions in check. First, I'd like to thank my parents. A kid never realizes what their parents do for them until they have kids of their own. Mom and Dad, I truly appreciate the countless hours of travel and the money for the cleats, the jerseys, the hotel rooms, the plane tickets to England and Costa Rica, and the list can go on and on. Thank you for helping me live my passion. Without your sacrifice and dedication, I would have been just another kid who had a little bit of talent but not get to use it. Second, I'd like to thank the Statesboro High Hall of Fame committee. This is a huge honor. At least now when I tell my wife and kids, I used to be a baller back in the day, they can't roll their eyes and say, "Sure, Dad." What I appreciate the most about joining the Hall of Fame is reliving the memories. The memories of going to battle with your team, like our infamous game at Georgia Southern against Savannah Country Day. The memories of the exciting game-winning goals, like beating Glenn Academy in the region finals my junior year. And the memories of heartbreaking losses, like losing to Griffin in the state semifinals my junior and senior year. The memories of playing at Statesboro High are still my best memories of playing the game of soccer. I appreciate the Hall of Fame committee thinking enough of my career to think it is worthy of remembering. Soccer defined who I was when I was growing up. From the way I spent my time to the way people saw me. For a shy teenager, it was a way to see myself through the crazy years of high school. And although I've not played competitive soccer in years, I still draw on my confidence, relationship building, and work ethic that I developed all those years ago to help me today. Winnie and I have 2 kids, Madison and Jackson, and they've begun their own journeys. Jackson has found success in the Tormented Soccer Academy, and Madison is making a name for herself in competitive golf. I often try to pull from my years playing to help guide them and show them the values they can gain from sports. Here are the few things I share with Madison and Jackson. Glorify God. First and foremost, use your talents, not for yourself, but to glory God. Confidence. Be proud of yourself and the hard work you put in. Building confidence has little to do with outcomes, but everything to do with preparation. Competition. Enjoy the competitive battles. Celebrate your wins, learn from your losses. Both are essential to your growth. Fun. Always have fun. If you're not having fun, you need to find your passion. Never forget, fun is why we play. Thank you again to my dad for introducing me, and thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for making this night possible.
Congratulations, Al. All right, we've come to our final inductee. Last but not least, our honorary inductee, Coach Buzz Busby, who will be introduced by Kenny Tucker. And again, I go back to my time as the stadium announcer for Statesboro High School, and I have to say that Coach Busby provided one of the most special moments during that 20-year period for me, the most special moment, when I had the opportunity to be the stadium announcer at Allen E. Paulson Stadium for the state championship with 17,000 people in that stadium. It was just absolutely an awesome night, and we won, which made it even more awesome. Kenny, come up and introduce Coach Buzz.
Good evening. Get my reading glasses on, take my driving glasses off, so I can see. Coach Buffy, this could be tough, introducing you. Coach Buzzy's been involved in high school, was involved in high school athletics for 36 years, 25 as a head coach, with a head coaching record of 220, 74, and 3. For 5 of those years, he was the head coach here at Statesboro High School and athletic director from 1999 to 2003. I met Coach Busby in 1999. I had coached here for 16 years and had stepped away, and he interviewed me and gave me an opportunity to come back and coach football. But I had a trip planned to New York, and it was going to be during spring practice. So I said, Coach, I already played for this plane ticket. I'm supposed to go with my daughter to New York, He said, well, I'll tell you one thing, Coach. You can coach football or you can go to New York. So I immediately said, Coach, I will be coaching football with you. So that started our 5-year coaching adventure. During his tenure here at Statesboro High School, the teams won 55 games, lost 11, tied 1. But his influence over the next 9 years in our football program won us a lot more than 55 games. The 20 years of 99 and 03 his teams advanced to the state playoffs every year. In 2000 and 2003, we finished runner-up in the state. In 2000 to Shaw, and 2003 to Marist. In 2001, Coach Busby led Statesboro High Blue Devils to a perfect season, which accumulated here on Womack Field with a victory over Dalton to win the 4A Georgia State Football Championship. Following this season, Coach was named Georgia Sports Writer Coach of the Year in 4A. He was recognized for many other outstanding achievements that year. He was selected the Atlanta Journal-Constitution Coach of the Year in 2003, Savannah Morning News Coach of the Year in 2000. He was a Region 3 4A Athletic Director of the Year 200th ball game, which happened when he was here at Statesboro High. And because of his exceptional coaching techniques and success on the field, Coach Busby was asked to speak in coaching clinics at the University of Alabama, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, University of Florida, and Auburn, while serving here as the head football coach and athletic director. When we were getting ready to go, back when Coach was here, the semifinals for the state playoffs were played in the Georgia Dome, which we were undefeated in 3 years in a row. Coach had gotten sick, I was sick, and this was a Friday, it was 2001, we were headed to Atlanta. I always knew, he said, come on, get in the truck, something was about to happen. So I said, Coach, where are we going? He said, well, we're going to get a couple of shots and make us feel better. I said, okay, that sounds good. I didn't feel really good. So we pulled up to the hospital, and y'all know Dr. Al Palmer, he's a gynecologist. And I said, Coach, why are we here? He said, well, this is where we're going, to the doctor. I said, Coach, I'm not going in there. He said, yes, you are. You're going to get 2 shots. So since 2001, Dr. Al Palmer's been my gynecologist. I can remember sitting in a waiting room, and there's a bunch of women in there, pregnant women, and the nurse comes to the door, Mr. Tucker, come on back. She walks me back there, and I've got my head down, and look, she says, you okay? And I said, when I got in the room, she said, yeah, I'm okay, Mom. I had to put my heels in them stirrups. So we got through that, and ever since then, when I get sick, I call Dr. Al. I said, Dr. Al, I need a little of that thunder and lightning. But this time, these times when I go, Dr. Al lets me sneak in the back door and sit in his office. So I'm not embarrassed to go in there anymore. Coach Busby has been a head coach for 3 state championships, 1 here at Statesboro in 2001. He won the state championship at Kendrick High School, and he has one of his former players here tonight, Chad Roberts. They won it in 1999, and I think they'll just have a 30-year reunion, Coach, over that. And next week, we'll be having a reunion of the 2001 football team here for the 20th year reunion for that team. We're also going to have the 2005 team here because they didn't get to have theirs last year, and we're probably going to scrimmage at halftime, I think, Coach. So it'll be pretty good. Coach Busby and I have been very good friends since '99. We talk a lot more during football season than we do at other times, but we fish together. He's been a very great friend, mentor to me, made me a better football coach than I was when he got here because he demanded that his coaches coach on the field. And we got to where we respect him so much, we didn't want to let him down. So it made us prepare, and we turned out some pretty good products while Coach was here. Before we introduce Coach, I'd like to congratulate Joey. I had front row seat for you, buddy. Mr. Eddie, I have heard a lot of stories about you from Coach Poole, Coach Collins, Coach Hodges, Courtney, got to see you grow up and play. Alan, you too. Josh, you made my job very hard. We couldn't block Josh. Never were able to block Josh, but it was good having you on the same team on Friday night, we felt. With that, I'd like to introduce Coach Buzz Busby for his honorary induction to the Statesboro High Athletic Hall of Fame. I was nice. I told the truth like you told me.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity and this award, and it's very important to coaches, especially when they get as old as I am, to get some kind of recognition. There was a procedure to make what we did as a school and as student body that we accomplished. And the first thing was I had to have some help. And Kenny brought up something, and this sorry rascal knew I was gonna bring it up, and that's the reason he did it, because I told him I was. And that was the fact that when he had to go to I thought it was Washington D.C. on a field trip, but I guess it was New York instead. But when he agreed to stay home, and his wife disliked me for the next 15 to 20 years because she doesn't put out a lot of money for the plane flight and everything, and I don't blame her. I'd have been upset at the coach too. But when he made that decision, I knew I had one coach on board. Then I had another coach that I had to see what was going on, and that was Jack Webb. I was told pretty strongly that I did not need to keep him on my staff. And I said, well, I'm going to interview him. And I did. I interviewed him. And when I got through interviewing him, I went up and told the administration that he would be one of my coaches because I believed what he had to say, and he didn't let me down. He was a heck of a coach. Now, a little story on Jack. Jack, during football seasons, there's no such thing as planning periods. Those don't exist. There's something to do with football when you're not teaching. And so what Jack would do, he was in charge of the equipment, and he'd go down there on Fridays and he'd put the equipment in the lockers. Everybody had a laundry pen. He'd put all that. He had everything organized. And one day something had to go wrong. I don't know what it was, but I went in there and I decided I was going to help Jack. And good gracious alive, he was so doggone organized, and I messed him up so bad in what he was doing. Finally, I just threw my hands up and said, Jack, handle it, I'm gone. And he didn't. As patient as he is, he finished the job like he always does. And then Kenny is one of the things that Kenny led, and I don't know why he got the privilege of doing this, was to keep me off the buses when we traveled. We always took 3 buses. We put the JVs on the bus. We put the offensive players that were going to play that night on the bus, and we put the defensive players on a bus. So we always took 3 buses. And Kenny felt like he and Jack needed to keep me off those buses so I wouldn't leave somebody at home, because I couldn't stand people to talk within 3 hours or 3.5 hours when we were supposed to play. It's time to think about football. And I think Josh can remember those days, can't you, Josh? And speaking of Josh started for us as a freshman. Now, I hadn't, in all my career, I probably didn't have over 4 or 5 young men that started as true freshmen. And I was worried about starting Josh because he didn't win the starting position. He was a nose guard, and the nose guard that was supposed to be starting that night came to me to see me that Monday and said, Coach, I'm gonna miss Monday and Tuesday's practice. I said, why? He said, I'm going on a visitation to a college. I said, well, you need to talk to the coach over there and just stay there because you're not going to be playing Friday night. And so the kid didn't play another play the rest of the year for me. And the reason he didn't is because I started Josh against Thompson, of all people. And he had an unbelievable ball game, so there was no reason for me to ever play that senior again. So Josh didn't earn it prior to that night, but that night he showed me he was a heck of a football player and did it. And the one thing that would aggravate me about Josh is we'd get out there and it'd be so doggone hot. And we were practicing 3 or 4 times a day, and it would be hot. And I don't mean this to be really nauseous, but he'd have snot coming out of his nose. He'd have white spit coming out the corners, and he'd have a good time. He loved it. And I'd have to tell the coach. I'd tell one of the coaches to go over there and tell
Jack or whoever was in charge at that time would say, get him out of practice, because we couldn't run the ball with him in nose guard. So, and then he'd get mad, but that's okay too. So anyway, those two guys proved to me that they really wanted to coach football. And I had a meeting in the interview, principal at the school, Dr. Batten was there, Ed Hill was there, and Cy Waters was there. And they were all asking me these questions, and I was giving them all these answers that I believed in. And Dr. Batten asked a question. He said, Coach, is there any way in the world while you here that we can go to the dome? He wanted to go to the dome and get one of those boxes up there where they give you food and everything, and that was what he thought that he wanted for Statesboro football. And I looked at him because I didn't understand it, and I said, is that the championship game? He said, oh no, that's the semifinals. I said, well, bull on the semifinals. I don't care about the semifinals. I want to win the finals. So anyway, that was Dr. Batten's thing. The second thing is, what did we have to do? Now, don't remember exactly. I'm sure Jack can tell us, but they didn't have a glorious season prior before I got here. So what were we as coaches going to do to turn this thing around? First thing, we had to win over the players. We had to get the players to believe in what we said. And we had to back it up. We had to have success. Well, we had some early success, and it went a long ways because we won 9 ball games that first year. I think we lost 2, maybe 3. I'm not real positive on that. That was a long time ago. I think I said 4 years old. I can't remember like I used to. But we had to do that, and the other thing we had to do was get these kids sold in the weight room. Now, there was a guy at Bradwell Institute over there that called me one day, John Walsh, head coach. He said, Coach, you're not going to believe this. We got 21 kids that can power clean over 225 pounds. Now that power clean is putting it on the floor, coming all the way up off the floor. Well, I said, Coach, that's pretty doggone good. You got 21? He said, yeah. He said, how many you got? I said, 53. So that's all put a damper on that. And just to give you another, normally the quarterbacks don't think they're supposed to be strong. We're nice, pretty boys, so we're not supposed to be real strong. The year that we won the state, Eugene Groves could bench press 395 pounds as a quarterback. So we won the kids over in the weight room, and nobody that we played was stronger than us. And because of that, we didn't get people hurt. If you hit the weights, you do what you're supposed to do in the weight room, then your body is going to be able to take the beating on the field, and you're not going to get hurt. We had very, very few. I don't remember of us losing a starter in 5 years when he may be out one game, but not losing for the whole year. We just didn't have that happen. So that was one of the things we had to do. Another thing we had to do was set up an environment. And what we tried to do with setting up an environment was we didn't try to push Christianity on anybody. But we tried to set up an environment where if a kid was a Christian, he wouldn't feel uncomfortable being in our football program. Because one, there's to be no profanity, none from the coaches and none from the players. And another thing that we would do is before every practice, we would have a team prayer. We had a prayer that we used. Before every ball game, we had a chaplain, to have a prayer for us. After the game, which we were not supposed to do, we would get in a group and we would have our team prayer. And normally after a ball game, I would not talk to the players because I was either, and I hate to use the word, I was either pissed off or just aggravated. I don't care if we won or lost, there was something wrong, and I didn't want to talk to them then because I didn't want to make a win seem negative. So we'd have that prayer, we'd break, let let them get with your parents, and then let them go in. So there was an atmosphere that we tried to create. And then another thing that we had, just to give you some more ideas, we had a 15-minute rule. And the 15-minute rule was, if we're going somewhere to play, and we're gonna leave at 4 o'clock, the bus leaves at 3:45. We don't ever leave when we're supposed to. We always leave early. So if you're not there, you're gonna get left. And we left some coaches in that 5 years, and they had to get in their cars and catch us. So the discipline, and Josh says, you know, it wasn't, we were tough on them sometimes, but we were never tough on them. We were all easy on them all the time. But some of the things that happened that to us because we were Statesboro, we had a lady reporter come up to me in the dome, and I was sitting up in the stands and with the team. And she come over to me and she said, Coach Busby, is this your team? I said, yeah, this is them. She said, boy, they're small. I said, yeah, but we're going to try to play pretty good tonight. But the thing was, that was the JVs. The varsity were in the dressing room, and she thought that's what we were going to play, and I never told her any different. So that was one thing that was pretty good. A friend of mine, that most of you know, is Lewis Moore. Lewis Moore always had something going on. He was always full of something. And he came to me one day. He said, Coach, I got to resign as president of the Booster Club. I said, what's the problem? He said, Coach, we're 1-1-1. He said, everybody's going to blame that on me. I said, Lewis, I said, hang on, we're going to get there. And so sure enough, I got him to stay with us, and we went and played Marist state championship. We won in the Dome, went to Marist, and Marist had 28 seniors on their team, and they also had 31 juniors. And we started that night 10 sophomores and 2 freshmen, and almost beat them. They had a great football team. Of course, their coach right now, their quarterback right now is a head coach at the Rams, professional football. So anyway, there was some, another thing that I wanted to bring up. We were playing one night, and I don't remember who it was. It may have been, I don't know, I don't have any idea who it was. But I saw Michael Sumner. He'd get up there to the line of scrimmage, and the nut would be doing this. And I called timeout, called the offense over there. I said, Michael, what are you doing? He said, Coach, I'm telling them where we're running the ball because they can't stop us anyway. You know, I'm thinking, good gosh, you got to be kidding me. And I'm going to tell you about one other, and he's not here. Harrison Palmer did something one day. He was a sophomore, and it was hot, it was rough, and we have rules, blocking rules, who you're supposed to block. And Harrison gets out there, and I tell him what to do. He misses his block, and I look at him, I said, Harrison, what in the world made you do that? Yeah, I just went over it with you. He said, Coach, I'm stupid. I said, no, you're not stupid. I said, let's get it fixed. So that's fun times, you know, and you got to have fun. And I know some of these guys that they work on me and, when I'm not around, and I understand that. I'd do the same thing if I was there, because they think, but it was a very fun time that I had here with the players. There I made some really great friends here. Kenny calls me once a week. He's got it. What it is, he's bored and he's riding down the road and he's got to talk to somebody, so he knows I'll answer the phone. But anyway, it was a thing that I enjoyed. We were very, very successful. And I'm gonna bring up one other song, And this is also with our gynecologist. They came the first year there, that I was there, they said, Coach, is there anything that we can do for you before the ball game? I said, yes. I said, I want the goal post painted. I said, those goal posts are terrible. So they said, all right, we'll take care of it. And so I said, okay. So they tell me when they're gonna take care of it, because I'm gonna be there and watch. So they come out with a boom truck. And they get down there and they gonna paint that goal post. Well, they set it up, and Perry gets in the bucket. Perry Sumner does. He gets in the bucket, he got yellow paint. So he's going up that goal post, and he's all the way up there at the top. And something happened. They forgot to put the feet out on the truck. So he's up there at the very top of the goal post, and he starts swaying. And then he grabs the goal post with both hands, puts it in his chest, got it on his face, all the way down, and he's yelling. And he's up there, help, help, get me down. And so and I'm laughing so hard, and I shouldn't be laughing because it's dangerous as the devil, because it was actually doing this, the truck was. And he ought to have been so fat, that was part of the problem. So we finally get him down, and then we put the feet out, and then he goes back up there and makes a goal post. But there was some great, great times. There was great friends. The coaches that we had a few more than somebody mentioned earlier that they only had 3 coaches, but we had, I imagine we probably had about 8 assistant coaches. And I'm going to mention one other guy that I was real pleased with that did a great job here for me was Mike Young. And Mike, when I came here, Mike was young, didn't have much experience at all of coaching. And here's the kicker. He was making $1,200 a year to coach football. Now, that's ridiculous. So we revamped the whole schedule of money that was given to the football coaches, the assistants. And Mike got a substantial raise because he was my main offensive line coach and did a great job for me for 4 years, 5 years, however many I was here. So anyway, this is a great honor to me, and I do appreciate what Kathy did, and I hope she's not still mad at me for not letting Kenny go on that trip to New York. But I appreciate it. I enjoyed being back, and I'm glad to see some of you people I hadn't seen in a long time. Thanks.
Folks, it's a lot of fun when you get to make memories like this, and thanks for a wonderful evening. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, then a video has to take us straight up into the millions. And we're going to finish tonight with a video tribute, seeing some of these smiling faces that we've been honored tonight. So as we're getting ready for the video, those of you on the stage, feel free to walk out, because you're going to be able to see it a lot better. And you can sit with your families. Alan, you're going to probably be the only one that needs to stay, but you can sit and come back up if you'd like. It's a wonderful evening. Let us get situated for just a second, and this is going to be a great way to end the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our evening. I want to thank Kathy Tucker and the Hall of Fame committee for putting this wonderful evening together. I want to thank all of the former inductees for being here tonight, and for the families, and for the presenters, and most of all, I want to thank tonight's inductees for what they have meant and still mean to Statesboro High School athletics. Thank you all very much. Congratulations again. Be careful going home, and thank you for coming.